Alex had always thought of himself as a normal guy. He worked at a small tech company, had a few close friends, and lived in a modest apartment in the city. Life wasn't perfect, but it was comfortable. That is, until he ended up with a roommate who wasn't quite what he expected. Her name was Zyra, and she wasn't human. Zyra was an alien. She was from a planet called Zelia, far away in the galaxy. But despite her bright blue skin, silvery eyes, and slightly taller frame, Zyra wasn't like the other aliens Alex had read about in sci-fi books. She wasn't here to conquer Earth, steal resources, or cause chaos. She was here to study human culture and experience life on Earth. Alex had no idea how she ended up as his roommate. But there she was. At first things were awkward. Zyra spoke a little differently, and her sense of humor was ... unique. But Alex quickly realized that, despite their differences, Zyra was kind and easy to get along with. She didn't have this strange alien vibe that movies often portrayed. She was just another person trying to fit in. It wasn't until a few months into their living situation that Alex started to notice something strange. Zyra seemed a little off, more distant than usual. She'd spend a lot of time locked in her room, and when she did come out, there was a look in her eyes that Alex couldn't quite place. It wasn't until one evening when she casually mentioned it that Alex realized what was happening. "It's mating season," Zyra had said, stirring a pot of soup in the kitchen. She didn't seem too bothered by it, but Alex could tell she was trying to downplay it. "For my species, it's a time when emotions become ... stronger." Alex, who had never even heard of the concept of alien mating seasons before, froze. "Wait, what do you mean mating season?" He hadn't expected that kind of news from his roommate. Zyra laughed softly, shaking her head. "I knew you were going to ask," she said. "It's not exactly what you think. It's more of a biological thing. During this time, my people, well, our instincts become more intense. Emotions, feeling that this was going to be awkward. Things got stranger the next day when they received an emergency notification. A citywide lockdown was declared due to some unrest in a nearby district. The entire area was on high alert, and all public transport was halted. It meant no one was leaving their apartments for the next few days. Zyra seemed unfazed by the news. "I'll be fine," she said, even though she looked a little more tense than usual. Alex wasn't so sure. With nowhere to go, he was stuck in the apartment with her for the duration of the lockdown. As the days went on, Alex couldn't help but notice the changes. Zyra's energy seemed to shift. She was restless, pacing around the apartment at odd hours of the day and night. Her usual calm demeanor had been replaced with a sort of jittery energy. She wasn't always in the mood to talk, and when she did, she seemed distracted, her eyes often drifting to something far beyond him. Alex tried not to make a big deal of it. After all, Zyra had said it was all part of her species' natural cycle. Still, it was hard not to notice. One evening, as they sat on the couch watching a movie, Zyra seemed to fidget more than usual. She kept shifting in her seat, her eyes darting around the room like she couldn't find a place to focus. It was only then that Alex realized how much this strange mating season was affecting her. He didn't want to make things awkward, so he tried to act normal. "You okay?" he asked, glancing at her as she tugged at the sleeve of her shirt, her fingers tapping nervously against her arm. Zyra gave him a quick, forced smile. "I'm fine, really. Just ... adjusting to the season, you know." Her voice was a little shaky, and she shifted her weight in her seat again. Alex wasn't sure what to say. Part of him wanted to ask more questions, but another part of him just didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable. The situation was already strange enough. The days passed, and Zyra became more distant. But it wasn't until the evening of the third day that things truly started to feel different. The air in the apartment was heavier somehow, and Alex wasn't sure if it was just him or if something had changed between them. He didn't want to say anything, but it felt like they were both waiting for something to happen. And then, as they sat down for dinner that night, Zyra looked at Alex, her silver eyes more intense than they had ever been. "Alex," she said, her voice softer than usual. "I just want to thank you for being ... patient. I know this isn't easy, and I didn't want to make things strange between us." Alex met her gaze, unsure of what to say. But he did know one thing. This strange, unexpected situation was only just beginning. The lockdown had caught Alex off guard. With nowhere to go and no way to leave, he and Zyra were stuck in the apartment. Together, what had started as a minor inconvenience soon began to feel more like a pressure cooker. The atmosphere in the apartment seemed to shift, and Alex found himself growing more aware of Zyra's every movement. Zyra hadn't been herself for the last couple of days. Her usual calm demeanor had faded, replaced by bursts of nervous energy. The way she paced the apartment or fidgeted with her clothes didn't go unnoticed. Alex couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. But he tried his best to ignore it, thinking it was just part of what she had called the mating season. He had learned a lot about her species over the past few months. Zyra's people were very different from humans, both physically and emotionally. Her people, known as the Zellians, experienced mating season as a time of heightened emotions and instincts. It wasn't like human mating, though. It was more of a biological need, a time when emotions became intense and the body responded in unexpected ways. Zyra had reassured him that it wasn't anything to worry about, but Alex could feel that something was changing. He wasn't sure if it was her or him, but everything felt different. That evening, Zyra walked into the living room. Looking as if she was struggling to keep herself together, her blue skin seemed to shimmer in the dim light, and her silvery eyes had a distant look in them. She moved toward the couch where Alex was sitting, her movements slow and deliberate. "Hey Zyra, are you feeling okay?" Alex asked, his voice soft. He had noticed how tense she had become over the past few hours. Zyra hesitated, her eyes avoiding his for a moment. Then, with a deep breath, she sat down next to him, her body tense. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice lacked the usual calmness. "It's just ... difficult sometimes." Alex didn't say anything right away. He wasn't sure if it was the right time to press her, but the change in her behavior was hard to ignore. He had never seen her so withdrawn, and it made him feel uncomfort, trying to keep herself from losing control. I'm not uncomfortable," Alex replied, trying to reassure her. He didn't want to make her feel worse. "Just want to make sure you're okay." Zyra nodded slowly, though she still looked uncertain. She let out a long breath before continuing. "It's just that mating season doesn't only affect us physically. It affects our emotions too. We become more connected to the people around us, whether we want to or not. And right now, being so close to you, it's hard to control." Alex raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Zyra hesitated before answering. "I mean that I can't help but feel things more deeply, not just in a physical way, but emotionally. It's like everything I've been holding back becomes more intense. And when I'm close to you, it's like it's harder to keep my distance." Alex didn't know how to respond to that. His heart started to race a little. He had always admired Zyra's calm, collected nature, but now, seeing her like this, he wasn't sure what to think. He hadn't expected any of this. This was beyond anything he had imagined when he first agreed to share an apartment with her. "Not trying to make you feel awkward," Zyra said, her voice soft. "It's just ... I've never been in a situation like this before. Being trapped in here with all these feelings. It's strange." Alex nodded, understanding a little more. "Yeah, I get it. It's a lot to deal with." Zyra smiled weakly. "I'm glad you understand. It's hard to explain, but I appreciate you not freaking out." They sat there for a while, the tension hanging in the air. Alex wasn't sure what to say. It wasn't every day that a human ended up sharing space with an alien during their mating season. It was bizarre. But he didn't want to push Zyra too much. She had always been kind to him, and he didn't want to make her feel like she was doing something wrong. After all, she couldn't control what her biology was doing to her. As the evening went on, Alex tried to focus on the small things that would make the situation more comfortable, like making sure there was enough food, and that the lights were dimmed to keep things calm. He even put on a movie, hoping the distraction would help them both relax. But even with the movie playing, Alex couldn't shake the strange feeling that had taken root. It was like something was changing between them. Something neither of them had expected. Zyra was no longer just his roommate. She was becoming something more complicated. And for better or worse, he wasn't sure where this was going. He glanced at Zyra, who was sitting quietly next to him. She didn't seem to notice him looking. lost in her thoughts again. But as the night went on, Alex couldn't help but wonder if he'd ever look at her the same way again. The next few days passed in a strange blur. The world outside seemed far away, and the city's lockdown kept Alex and Zira confined to their apartment. What had started as a brief moment of awkwardness was now growing into something much more complex. Alex couldn't deny that things were different between them. Zira was still his roommate, but there was an energy between them now that he hadn't felt before. Zira's behavior had changed more than Alex had expected. She wasn't the calm, collected alien he had first met. Instead, she was often distracted. Her eyes distant, her movements more erratic. Even when she was in the same room as Alex, she seemed lost in her own world, struggling to keep her emotions in check. Alex tried to be understanding. After all, she had told him it was just the effects of mating season. But it was getting harder to ignore. He noticed the small things. The way Zira would stop in the middle of a sentence, her gaze unfocused, as if something inside her mind was pulling her in a different direction. How her scent had changed. It wasn't unpleasant, but it was stronger than usual, more intense. And sometimes she would stare at him in a way that made him feel uncomfortable, though she quickly looked away as if she hadn't meant to do it. It wasn't just her physical changes. Her emotions were becoming harder to ignore. She was more open about her feelings, both in the moments when she was upset and when she was happy. Her laughter came more easily, but so did her frustration. It was as if her instincts were demanding more attention than she could handle. Alex could see the internal battle raging inside her. She was trying to remain composed, but it was clear that the pressure was starting to get to her. One evening, after they had eaten dinner together, Zira was pacing around the apartment again, her hands clasped behind her back. Alex had learned to give her space, but tonight something felt different.
Oh.
She was restless, even more so than usual. Her body language was tense. Alex could tell that she was struggling to keep herself under control. "Zira," Alex said softly, standing up from the couch. "You've been pacing for hours. Is everything okay?" Zira paused mid-step and turned to face him. Her eyes were wide, almost desperate, as if she hadn't realized how much time had passed. She took a deep breath before responding. "I'm sorry, Alex. I can't help it." She shook her head, looking away in frustration. The mating season. It's a lot to handle. I feel like I'm losing control. Alex wasn't sure how to respond. He had never been in a situation like this before, and he wasn't sure what Zira needed from him. He had been trying to be supportive, but he didn't know what else to do. "I don't know how to make it stop," Zira continued, her voice shaking a little. "I don't want to hurt you or make you uncomfortable, but everything is so overwhelming right now. I feel things that I don't want to feel, and it's like my body isn't listening to me." Alex stepped closer, his heart going out to her. He had always known Zira to be strong and independent, but now she seemed vulnerable in a way that made him feel protective of her. He could see how much she was fighting against herself, trying to maintain control over a situation she had no control over. He didn't know what to say, but he knew he couldn't just stand there. "Zira," Alex said, his voice gentle but firm. "You're not alone in this. I don't fully understand what you're going through, but I'm here for you. If you need to talk, or if you just need someone to sit with you, I'm here." Zira's expression softened and she looked up at him, her silvery eyes full of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't want to admit that I needed help. I thought I could handle it on my own." Alex gave her a small smile, relieved that she was opening up to him. "You don't have to do this alone, Zira. We're roommates, right? Friends too?" There was a long pause as they both stood there, the weight of the situation hanging in the air. Zira took a step back, her shoulders sagging as if the tension she had been holding finally started to release. "I don't want to mess things up between us," she said, her voice quiet. "This whole mating season thing, it's not something I can control. I hate feeling like I'm pushing you away." "You're not pushing me away," Alex said, his voice reassuring. I don't know what this is either. But I do know that I'm not going to let it ruin our friendship." Zira nodded slowly, her eyes closing as she exhaled deeply. She looked like a Y out, anyone before, especially not about her roommate, and especially not about an alien. But there was something undeniable. The connection between them was shifting. Alex wasn't sure where this was going or how it would all play out. But one thing was certain. Their relationship was no longer just about sharing an apartment. It was becoming something more complicated, something neither of them had anticipated. The following days felt like they were slipping through Alex's fingers. He could no longer ignore the changes in the apartment, in Zira, and even in himself. The space between them seemed to shrink, the air thick with something unspoken. Each day, Zira became a little more unpredictable, a little more distant, but also a little more ... Open. It was early morning when Alex first noticed it. Zira stood by the kitchen window, gazing out at the city below, the soft light of dawn casting a pale glow over her blue skin. She looked beautiful, but it wasn't just her appearance that caught his attention. It was the way she held herself, the quiet stillness in her movements, as if she were lost in a world of her own. "Good morning," Alex said, breaking the silence. Zira turned to him with a small smile. "Good morning," she replied, though her voice lacked its usual cheerfulness. It seemed softer, more distant. Her eyes met his for a moment, but she quickly looked away, as if something was making her uncomfortable. Alex felt the weight of her gaze, but he didn't push it. Instead, he made coffee, trying to keep the routine as normal as possible. They both sat down at the small kitchen table, the silence between them more noticeable now than before. Zira shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her fingers tapping lightly on the edge of the table. She didn't meet his eyes, and Alex couldn't help but notice how much her mood had shifted over the last few days. She wasn't the same easygoing, confident person she used to be. Now, there was a tension in her movements, something that seemed to grow with each passing day. "Are you sure you're okay?" Alex asked, his voice gentle. "You've been ... different?" Zira looked up at him, her silvery eyes filled with uncertainty. "I'm not sure anymore," she said softly. "It's hard to explain." Alex set down his coffee cup and leaned forward slightly, trying to make her feel comfortable. "You don't have to explain if you don't want to," he said. "But if something's going on, I'm here to listen." For a moment, Zira said nothing. She just stared at the table, her fingers still tapping lightly. Then, with a sigh, she spoke again, her voice low and hesitant. "It's just that ... Everything is more intense right now. My emotions, my instincts. It's like my body is telling me one thing, and my mind is telling me another, and it's hard to keep them balanced." Alex nodded, understanding a little better now. "I can't imagine what it's like for you. But I'm still here, Zira. We don't have to pretend things are normal if they're not." Zira smiled again, though it was small and sad. "Thank you, Alex. I don't know how you're handling all of this. I'm not exactly easy to live with right now." "You're not a problem," Alex said quickly. "You're just ... you. And I'm not going anywhere." Zira looked up at him, her eyes softening slightly. She seemed to be holding back something she wasn't ready to say. Alex could feel the weight of it hanging between them. "I've been trying so hard to stay in control," Zira continued. "But every day, it's getting harder. I feel drawn to you in ways I don't understand, and it scares me." The words hung in the air, thick with tension. Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had sensed something between them, but hearing it out loud made it all feel much more real. Double quotes. Z. Y. R. A. ... Alex began, but he wasn't sure what to say. How do you comfort someone when they're struggling with something so deep and unknown? "I don't want to cross any boundaries," Zira said quickly, as if she were afraid of what might happen. "Next, you're my friend. I don't want to ruin that." Alex paused. There it was, the unspoken truth between them. They had become more than just roommates. But where did it go from here? We could feel the pull, too. It wasn't just sympathy. For her situation, it was more than that. He found himself drawn to her, too, in ways he hadn't expected, just hadn't wanted to admit it yet. "You haven't ruined anything," Alex said quietly, his voice steady. "But I get it. This is complicated. We're both trying to figure it out." Zira nodded slowly, her eyes cast downward again. She seemed to be searching for something, perhaps answers she didn't have. It's just ... so confusing, she said. I've never felt like this before. Not with anyone. And it's harder to ignore when we're in such close quarters. Alex felt a wave of empathy wash over him. He had never been in this kind of situation before, ever had to navigate the delicate balance between emotions and reason the way Zira did. I don't know what you're going through, Alex said. But I know that I'm not going to run away because things are complicated. Zira's gaze flickered up to meet his. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the silence between them speaking volumes. Then, with a soft laugh, Zira shook her head. You make things sound so easy. I don't think it's easy, Alex said, a small smile forming on his face. But I do know that we can figure it out. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together. Zira smiled faintly, but it was the first real smile Alex had seen from her in days. It didn't make everything okay, but it was a start, as they sat there. The world outside the apartment still locked in its strange silence. Alex felt a shift in their relationship. They weren't just roommates anymore. Not just two people stuck in an awkward situation. There was something deeper now, something neither of them had expected. And as he looked at Zira, sitting across from him with that soft smile on her face, Alex knew that this was just the beginning. What would happen next? Neither of them could say, but for the first time in days, Alex felt like they could face whatever came next together. As the days passed, the pressure in the apartment seemed to grow. What had started as a mild curiosity about Zira's mating season had slowly evolved into something much more complicated. Despite their honest conversations, Alex couldn't shake the strange feeling growing inside him. There was a tension in the air that neither of them could ignore, but neither knew exactly how to address it. Zira had been quieter these last few days, retreating to her room more often. Alex had noticed how much more withdrawn she had become, but he knew that her species mating season was taking a heavy toll on her. She was still trying to maintain control. But Alex could see the struggle in her eyes whenever she caught herself slipping one evening. Zira sat on the couch, with her knees pulled up to her chest. The television was on, but she wasn't watching it. Her mind seemed far away, her gaze focused on nothing in particular. Alex watched her for a moment, then walked over and sat next to her, unsure of what to say. The apartment felt colder than usual. He couldn't help but feel like something important was about to happen between them. Zira, Alex said softly, his voice gentle. You've been acting different lately. You don't have to pretend everything's fine. If you need to talk, I'm here. Zira turned her head slightly to look at him, her silvery eyes filled with emotion. She didn't speak right away, but Alex could see that she was weighing her words carefully. After a long pause, she finally spoke, her voice low and hesitant. I feel ... lost, Alex. I don't know what's happening to me. Zira's voice trembled slightly and she looked down at her hands in her lap. I thought I could control it, but it's like everything inside me is waking up. Instincts are pushing me in directions I don't want to go. I hate feeling like I'm losing control over myself. Alex didn't know how to respond. At first, he had always known Zira to be strong, composed, and independent. But now, seeing her like this vulnerable and uncertain was unsettling. He didn't know what to say. But he knew he couldn't just sit there and let her suffer alone. You don't have to fight it all alone, Alex said, his voice steady. I don't fully understand what you're going through, but I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'll help you get through this. Zira looked at him then, her eyes softening. She seemed to hesitate for a moment, as if considering his words carefully. I don't want to hurt you, Alex, she said quietly. Been so kind to me, but I don't want to make things worse. I don't think you could ever hurt me, Alex said, feeling a rush of warmth in his chest. He reached out, placing a hand on hers, offering the kind of support he knew she needed. We've been through a lot together. We'll figure this out. Just take it one step at a time. Zira gave a small, uncertain smile, but there was something else in her eyes, a glimmer of hope. I don't know what's happening between us, Alex. I feel so much more connected to you than I've ever felt with anyone, and it's terrifying. Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had suspected it for a while, but hearing it from her made it all the more real. It was the same feeling he had been battling inside himself, something he didn't know how to put into words. He had never imagined that a simple living situation would turn into something like this. But now, sitting next to her, he couldn't deny it anymore. Z-Y-R-A ... Alex began, his voice barely above a whisper. He didn't know how to explain what he was feeling, but he knew he had to try. I don't know how to deal with all of this either. I can't ignore what's between us. It's confusing, but I don't want to pretend like it's not there. Zyra's eyes searched his face, her expression a mix of relief and uncertainty. She let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. I don't want to make things harder for you, she said, but I don't know how to fight these feelings anymore. It's like everything in my mind is telling me one thing and my body is telling me another. And you're so... close to me, Alex. I don't know how to handle it. I'm not going anywhere, Alex said, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. We'll figure this out together, okay? We just need to be honest with each other, no matter how messy it gets. For a moment, Zyra just stared at him, her expression softening. Then, without warning, she leaned her head against his shoulder. A sign of trust that Alex wasn't expecting but was thankful for. The closeness felt different now, more real than ever before. The next few days were filled with quiet understanding. Zyra had become more open with Alex about her emotions, and he had made sure to be there for her every step of the way. There were still moments when the tension between them grew thick, but they both learned to navigate it. The air between them was never quite the same as it had been before, but that didn't seem to matter anymore. It was clear that their relationship had changed. Neither of them could deny that something was growing between them, something complicated, something neither of them fully understood. But they were still figuring it out, step by step. They were no longer just roommates. They had crossed into something else, something that neither of them could have predicted. One night, after they had spent hours talking about everything and nothing, Zyra turned to Alex as they sat together on the couch. "Thank you," she said softly. "I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you." Alex smiled, his heart swelling with a mixture of affection and uncertainty. "I'm glad I could be here for you," he said. "But this isn't just about me helping you. We're in this together, okay?" Zyra nodded, her expression tender. "Together," she echoed softly, as they sat there, the weight of everything between them still lingering. Alex realized that this was only the beginning. Whatever the future held for them, they would face it side by side. He wasn't sure where it would lead, but he knew one thing for sure. They were no longer just two people sharing an apartment. It was something much more complicated, something neither of them fully understood yet. But they would find their way. The days seemed to blur together, and Alex found himself becoming more and more aware of how things had changed between him and Zyra. What had started as an uncomfortable situation was now evolving into something neither of them fully understood, but neither could deny. Zyra, though still struggling with the effects of mating season, had become more open with him. She would talk to him about her feelings, her struggles, and even her fears. Alex had always thought of Zyra as strong and independent, but now he was seeing a side of her that was more vulnerable, more human than he had expected. And with each passing day, Alex couldn't ignore how much closer they were becoming. It was late one evening when Zyra came to sit next to Alex on the couch. The apartment had grown quiet, and the city outside seemed peaceful, but inside everything felt charged. Zyra's presence had a new weight to it, one that was heavy with unspoken emotions. "You okay?" Alex asked, noticing how tense Zyra seemed as she sat beside him. Zyra took a deep breath, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of the couch. "I don't know if I'm okay, Alex. I'm not sure what's happening anymore." Her voice was soft, filled with uncertainty. "Keep telling myself that this is just temporary, that once the season passes, everything will go back to normal. But I'm starting to wonder if that's even possible." Alex could feel the tension in her words, the confusion that was slowly creeping into her mind. He didn't know how to answer, but he knew he couldn't leave her hanging. "Zyra, you've been through a lot. It's not easy, and I can't imagine how it feels for you, but I'm here. Whatever happens, I'm here for you." Zyra met his gaze, her silvery eyes full of emotion. "I never thought I'd feel so... less," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I always thought I could control everything my feelings, my actions, even my instincts. Now it feels like all of that is slipping away. I don't know how to deal with it. Alex didn't know how to respond to that. It was clear that Zyra's struggle wasn't just about her species' mating season. It was about something deeper, something more complicated than either of them could explain. And Alex realized, for the first time, that he was caught in the same struggle. The feelings he had been trying to ignore were growing stronger. It's harder to suppress. I don't know if I can fix it, Zyra continued, her voice thick with frustration. But I want to try. I don't want to keep pushing you away. You're not pushing me away, Alex said quickly, reaching out to place a hand on hers. The simple touch made his heart race, and he could feel the connection between them growing. I don't want to be anywhere else. I'm here with you. We'll figure this out together. Zyra looked at him, her eyes searching his face. Don't know how much that means to me, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I've never felt like this before, not with anyone. And it scares me. Alex could feel the weight of her words, the vulnerability she was showing. He had never seen Zyra so open, so honest. It made his heart ache with something he couldn't quite define. I don't know what's happening between us, Alex admitted, his voice soft. But I'm not going to run away from it. I don't want to run away from you. Zyra's lips parted slightly, and for a moment she seemed unsure of what to say next. The tension between them was almost unbearable, a silent storm brewing. In the space between them, but instead of pulling away, Zyra leaned in slightly, her face inches from his. I don't know what to do with these feelings, Zyra whispered, her breath warm against his skin. I've never felt so connected to someone before, and it scares me. Alex didn't know how to respond, but he didn't want to break the moment. The space between them was filled with so much emotion, so much unspoken understanding. He had never been in a situation like this before, but he couldn't ignore how much he cared for her. It wasn't just about helping her through mating season. Anymore, it was about something more, something deeper, before he could speak. Zyra suddenly pulled away, her cheeks flushing slightly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make this awkward, she said, looking down at her hands. Alex quickly reached out, gently taking her hand. You don't need to apologize, he said. It's not awkward. It's just ... complicated. Zyra nodded, looking up at him with an uncertain smile. I never expected any of this to happen, she said softly. But I'm glad it's with you. Alex felt his heart skip a beat at her words. There it was again, an unspoken truth. Something that neither of them had expected, but that neither of them could ignore. He didn't know where this was going, but he knew that it wasn't just a simple situation anymore. Their relationship had shifted into something neither of them fully understood. But they were both willing to navigate it together. For the first time in days, the apartment felt lighter. The tension that had been building between them didn't seem as heavy anymore. There was still a lot of uncertainty, but there was also something more, something hopeful as they sat there. In the quiet of the evening, Alex realized that this was just the beginning. Whatever came next, they would face it together. He didn't know what the future held. But one thing was clear. He wasn't going to let Zyra go through this alone, and maybe for the first time. Zyra didn't feel so alone either. The days continued to pass in a mix of confusion, honesty, and newfound connection. Alex found himself waking up each morning with a sense of uncertainty hanging over him. Things between him and Zyra were no longer as simple as they had once been. The lockdown had given them plenty of time to think, reflect, and, more importantly, to realize that their relationship had changed in ways neither of them had planned. Zyra, though still in the middle of her mating season, seemed calmer these days. There was an openness about her, a soft vulnerability that Alex hadn't noticed before. She was no longer trying to hide the effects of her emotions. Instead, she was embracing them at least. She was trying to... It wasn't easy, and Alex could see the effort she was putting into controlling herself. But he was glad that she wasn't bottling it up anymore. One morning, after they had finished breakfast, Zyra sat across from Alex at the table, her eyes thoughtful. She was quieter than usual, lost in her thoughts. Alex could tell that something was weighing on her, and though he wasn't sure what it was, He knew that she needed to talk about it. "Zyra," Alex said gently, breaking the silence. "You've been quiet today? Is something on your mind?" Hesitated, glancing down at her hands before meeting his eyes. "I've been thinking about everything that's happened over the past few weeks, about the way things have changed between us." She sighed, her voice soft but heavy with emotion. "I never expected any of this. I never thought I'd feel this way about you." Alex's heart skipped a beat. He had suspected she was feeling something more than just friendship, but hearing her say it out loud made it all the more real. He had been feeling the same way, but he hadn't known how to express it without complicating things further. "I feel the same," Alex admitted quietly, his gaze meeting hers. "Things have changed. And I'm not sure where it's going, but I don't want to ignore it anymore." Zyra smiled faintly, her silver eyes filled with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. "I don't know what this is, Alex, but I can't deny that there's something between us, something that wasn't there before." Alex nodded. "I think we both knew that. But it's more than just the mating season, right? It's not just about biology. It's about... No, it's something real." Zyra's smile grew a little wider, though it was still soft and hesitant. "Exactly," she said. "I've been so focused on getting through the season, trying to keep everything under control. It's like I was afraid to admit that. There was something more. Something I couldn't control." "I don't think either of us could control it," Alex said, leaning forward slightly. "But I think we're both figuring it out, one step at a time." Zyra took a deep breath, the weight of the conversation pressing down on her. "I don't want to mess this up," she said, her voice quieter now. "I've never had a relationship like this before. I'm used to keeping things simple casual. But this... with you, it feels different. It feels important." Alex reached across the table and gently took her hand. "I don't want to mess it up either," he said, his voice firm but kind. "But I don't think either of us is ready to walk away from this." Zyra's eyes softened as she looked at him, her expression filled with gratitude. "I'm glad you feel the same way. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to make things awkward between us." Alex smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "It's not awkward, Zyra. We're just figuring it out. We don't need all the answers right now." For the first time in a long time, Zyra seemed truly at ease. The uncertainty that had clouded her eyes for days had cleared, replaced by a sense of calm that Alex had rarely seen in her. She wasn't completely in control of everything yet, but she was accepting the change between the man that made all the difference. "Thank you," Zyra said softly, "for being patient with me, for understanding, even when I wasn't sure of myself." Alex shook his head. "You don't have to thank me. We're in this together. I just want you to feel like you can be yourself, no matter what's happening." Zyra smiled, the warmth in her eyes making Alex's heart feel lighter. "I'm starting to realize that I don't have to do this alone. And that's more than I could have asked for." The silence between them wasn't awkward now. It was comfortable, filled with mutual understanding. They both knew there were still challenges ahead, challenges neither of them could predict. At that moment, they also knew that they had something worth holding on to. Something real. As the day went on, Alex and Zyra spent time together like they always had, though now there was a new layer to their relationship. They still laughed, still shared stories, but there was a deeper connection that neither of them could ignore. It wasn't just about being roommates anymore. It was about being there for each other in a way that was stronger than anything they had expected. By the time night came, Zyra seemed calmer, more grounded. She no longer seemed to be fighting against herself. She had come to terms with what she was feeling, and Alex was right there with her. Neither of them knew where this new connection would lead, but they were willing to face it together as they sat on the couch that evening, the city lights shining through the window. Alex looked over at Zyra. She was quieter than usual, but the look on her face was peaceful, content. He had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in weeks, he felt like they were ready to face it together. Whatever came next. Alex knew one thing. They weren't just roommates anymore. They were something much more, and that was a step in the right direction.